Hello and welcome to Mostly Sapphic Books, where I am on a mission to read every single book about lesbians. Today we are talking about Hell's Heart by Alexis Hall. This video is going to be a very rambly discussion video, and I know if you've seen this channel before, you're thinking that is literally every video I have ever seen from you, but it will be especially rambly this time around because this is a strange book. Usually with a book, I read it and then I can go through the plot points and I can sort of comment on things as they come up, sort of chronologically. There's some structure to this channel, a little bit, sometimes. But with this book, it is a memoir. It's a fictional memoir retelling of Moby Dick in space with lesbians, and it's awesome. But it is like a memoir format, and so you're not really following for the plot. There is a beginning, middle, and end, and it's not directionless, but it is a memoir. You are reading this as sort of like a character study. You're listening to this character's point of view on what happens, and you know what happens because it's a Moby Dick retelling. They find the big whale. They find the big whale and then everybody dies, which you know that because this is a memoir told from the point of view of the sole survivor of the incident. And you learn that right off the bat, and also you probably already know that because it's a very faithful Moby Dick retelling. I haven't read Moby Dick. I read like passages. It's fine. It's like I'm not reading that. It's 700 pages. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And I don't care. An old man hunting a whale. No. Horny transgender lesbians hunting a space whale. Absolutely, I'm in. I'm sold. I'm seated. Get me on that boat, which is a spaceship, but it's also a boat. We're on a boat. In Jupiter. On Jupiter. In the gases of Jupiter, where the whales live, obviously. But it's very much a memoir, and we're not really jumping around in time. Or we are sometimes, but in a way that doesn't, like, fucking matter. It doesn't matter if the porn theater incident happens before these people get into a fight, which happens before this person gets injured. Like, the chronology of that on the spaceship, like, doesn't really matter. And I think this book does a lot with narrative and storytelling, and, like, that as a theme, and like how you tell a story, and like what really matters with a story, and how you can change things, or you can embellish details, or you could leave certain things out, and it does change the story. But if it gets at the heart of the story, or if it impacts the story in an interesting way that will impact the audience, it's worth it. And like you don't need to get bogged down with like the details of truth. There's commentary on that. I think this book is really deep and it's really fucking good. And I will be commenting on a lot of the things that I really, really liked in this book. And some of the plot. But also, I think a lot of this video is going to be me complaining about the people who are complaining about this book. Because this book is not highly rated as of yet. It just came out, so like take that with a grain of salt. But as I'm reading it and reviewing it, this has like a 3.2 something on Goodreads, which is low-key abysmal. That doesn't sound so bad, but like, honestly, most books are around like a 3.75 kind of range. Anything under a 3.5 is like pretty bad, to be honest. And then anything over a 4 is like really good. Unless sometimes there are outliers where people are just fucking delusional. But this is another outlier where people are delusional in the bad way. They're wrong. There's so many like negative reviews of this book and also DNFs of this book. This has like so many DNFs in the reviews, and I didn't think it was that polarizing. Maybe it is a really niche audience, but I think this could be enjoyed by anyone. Or like, I don't know. I thought more people would like this, and I don't know if this is in like the wrong hands. I can't really tell who's reading this and not liking it, because I loved this so much, and I can't imagine reading like the description of this book and being like, that sounds pretty interesting, and then like not enjoying it. So I'm like, who's reading this? Why are people not liking it? And maybe it is a marketing issue. I saw a lot of marketing for this. Like Tor was really pushing this. This is like a big 5 publisher, I think. It was like a big book. I saw a lot of marketing. Maybe I saw a lot of marketing because I'm literally the target audience and I absolutely love this. But I have to imagine that other people also saw the marketing for this. And then I have to imagine that people were like, oh, Moby Dick retelling, but sci-fi? Sure, I loved Moby Dick. And maybe if you were a person who loved Moby Dick, maybe you don't want the horny sci-fi lesbian retelling of Moby Dick. Maybe you thought this would be stuffier and old-timeier and have less dick jokes there's a lot of dick jokes. It's not really dick jokes, it's sperm jokes. Because they're hunting like whales. Spermaceti is the substance they're hunting. They kill the whales and then they use them for oil, which is, the Moby Dick thing. They use whale oil. And in this, it's a futuristic society that runs on these, like, godly leviathan whale ethereal Jupiter beings. We gotta kill them for their sperm. It's called Sperm. And it talks about sperm a lot. And there absolutely are a gazillion sperm jokes. I did see a lot of people complaining about that. I don't care. I like the sperm jokes. My other problem with some of these reviews is I saw a lot of contradicting complaints. I saw some people who said this is, like, too intellectual. Like, it's trying too hard to be smart. And it's, like, the writing's too fancy, and it doesn't need to do that because it's a contemporary novel, and it doesn't have to emulate Moby Dick with, like, big words or anything. And then I also saw a lot of people complaining that this was all pee-pee poo-poo sperm potty humor for 12-year-old boys. So which is it? Are we too refined and too tasteful, or are we too pee-pee poo-poo? Personally, I think both of those elements are really well done. I think you can be intellectual and have the sense of humor of a 12-year-old boy. The dichotomy of man. Dyke-otomy of man. Emphasis on dyke. This is very dykey. I think if you're a dyke, you'll like this book. I liked it. I did see other gay people, like, complaining about this, though. Like, I saw some people say, like, we don't need a queer Moby Dick retelling because Moby Dick is already very queer. And, like, okay, like, yeah, there's plenty of queer subtext in Moby Dick. You could absolutely read those gay guys as being some gay guys. This has trans lesbians fingering each other, like, all the time. That's different. That's different. What are you talking about? Let the lesbians have Moby Dick. Why are gay people complaining about this? We can take queer-coded books and give them explicit lesbian sex. Let's do it. I think we can do it. Look at, like, all the Carmilla retellings. Carmilla's gay, and then people retell it, and then they make it even gayer, and that's awesome. Let the lesbians finger each other. And then I also saw some people, like, in my bookish sphere, on the internet, various social channels, if you will, sort of, like, I feel like they were subtweeting this book. Like, they didn't like it, or they weren't interested. And maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm, like, projecting, and they weren't talking about this book at all, because, again, they were subtweeting. But I feel like people I kind of like, in queer spaces, were, like, ragging on this, or, like, not willing to give it a chance or something. I might be delusional. I might have made that up, but I feel like I have not seen a lot of hype for this. And I read it, and it was fucking rad. And I can't believe that more weird dykes aren't out there hyping this up, talking about this. This seems exactly like the kind of thing that would be, like, popular in weird dyke book spaces that I'm in. Another reason I say that is this is marketed as Gideon the Ninth meets Moby Dick. And that is a perfect description. This does feel very Gideon the Ninth. We're in space. I think our main character is from Pluto. She's very irreverent. Like, she's very witty. She's funny. There's pee-pee poo-poo sperm jokes. There's a lot of sex references. This character really uses sex to an unhealthy degree to sort of process her emotional trauma or not process her emotional trauma. There's a lot there. This is really deep. I'm gonna go into it. This is gonna be a long ass video, and it's not gonna be sectioned out at all, and it's just gonna be so fucking random. But our main character is really funny, and she sort of has this limited point of view in that she only has her own experience, and she's not the most reliable narrator. And I don't mean that in a sort of malicious way. I mean it in sort of a mischievous way. Again, she's a storyteller. She's writing her memoir, and you can tell when she's embellishing things. And she even points out when she gets little things wrong, or certain things contradict, or she changed the timeline for dramatic effect or artistic effect or whatever. So she's sort of a mischievous, limited perspective storyteller, and she only has her own point of view, and it's sort of like Gideon, where Gideon is in a necromancer world. She's not a necromancer, and she doesn't give a fuck about necromancy. And so you as the reader are like, what's all this going on? There's all this cool magical sci-fi stuff happening, and Gideon doesn't give a fuck, because she's Gideon, and that doesn't pertain to her. And I think this is sort of reminiscent of that, where we have this one character who is going to tell you their perspective, and they're not going to go into detail about all of the larger world of, some of the sci-fi stuff. There's a lot of religious elements to this, different planets, A lot of religious commentary. Do I get into that now? This is so unstructured. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to me who has to edit this. I'm sorry to you. I don't know. I don't know who's watching this, but if you're watching this, I'm sorry that it's just fucking random. This video is maybe best watched by someone who liked this book and just wants to hear someone talk about it. Because there's not that many people talking about it yet. It did just come out. There might be more people. There might not be a lot of people. You might be stuck with me. I'm sorry. This is what you got. But I'm not just doing this video for people who have read it. Like, I want you to read this. I love this book, and I want people in queer book spaces to read this because I think they'll like it. I don't really know why you wouldn't. Maybe it's not for everyone, but I feel like it's getting too many negative reviews, and I need to gas it up, like a gas giant, Jupiter, something there. I'm not a comedian. This really does feel like Gideon the Ninth. It's well written, it's funny, it has a very interesting narrator, it's gay, but this is more adult. There are sex scenes, but the sex scenes aren't like long. Like there's no like 5-page sex scene here. It's just like they very frequently reference sex and like things happen around the context of sex or like during sex scenes. Sometimes we'll get monologues from Captain Ahab, who is a weird weird lesbian. You know, maybe Captain Ahab is giving some sort of monologue about meeting Moby Dick before, but she just so happens to be fucking the main character while she's doing this. And the fucking is sort of the side part there. Or, you know, something will go down and it'll be like, I was in the captain's quarters when this person made the call to come out to the deck. And then she'll be like, I was in the captain's quarters because we were fucking. There's just a lot of sexual references, but there's no, like, super detailed 10-page sex scenes. You know what I mean? It's not really ever, like, meant to titillate. It's not a smut novel. It's just this way this character uses sex as sort of a distraction from her feelings, as sort of a way to get what she wants, as sort of a way to cope and like deal with her life. I really like this character. She is a trans woman and we're in the future and she goes on this voyage because half of her body has been reconstructed by Aphrodite Pharma State. And so she is in debt. She is in a lot of medical debt for this procedure. And if she doesn't pay up, they will just repossess half of her body. And that doesn't sound good. And so she both needs money and kind of wants to get away from the debt collectors and, you know, go swim on Jupiter for 3 years and, you know, get away, make some money. She has this very interesting relationship with her body, like where she's worked so hard for it, but it also isn't hers and doesn't belong to her. But she's also like, you know, I may as well use it. I did all of this for this body. I went through all of this. I owe all of this. I'm gonna use my body. So this character has a very interesting relationship with herself. There's so much to analyze here. Like, I can't even, like, talk about all the little things that I like. This is the kind of book that you can reread. It's like Gideon, where you can reread it and, like, pick up on little details, probably that contradict each other, and you think, like, oh, like, she's telling the story in this certain way, even though we know, like, that's not true, but, like, why did she tell it like that? Is it to highlight the actions of this person, or to say this, or whatever? Like, this is a book you could reread. Like, it's a weird, intellectual, dykey, fun, funny, space opera kind of book. It's fun. It's very Gideon. It's not the scope of Gideon because Gideon is 4 books. Maybe, hopefully. I hope there's a 4th book. But like, we are in space and we're traveling around space and we see a couple of different planets and we see like a couple of different religious systems and like we see some of the technology, but it's also not overly sci-fi. I saw some people complain that it was too sci-fi, and like they were here for Moby Dick. It's too sci-fi. It's not really that sci-fi, to be honest. There's like a chapter or a couple of chapters right in the beginning before she gets on the ship. She goes to like some different planet, port city, looking for work before she gets on the ship. And then we get some sci-fi stuff there with like the worlds and factions and religions and planets and stuff. But really after that, most of the book is on the ship in Jupiter with, you know, just this crew. And so it's not super sci-fi if you get past like that part in the beginning. If you're not into sci-fi, I think you could read this even if you're not into sci-fi. Like, there's not super long info dumps sometimes. There's little info dumps, but I always found them palatable, especially in comparison to Moby Dick, which is 700 pages long. I also saw people complain that this book is too long. I specifically watched one review where someone complained that this was too long and they thought Moby Dick wasn't this long. Moby Dick is hundreds of pages longer than this. So, no. That person was just misinformed. That person also hadn't read Moby Dick. They're wrong. Moby Dick is very infamous for its very long, drawn-out info dumps about whales. There are info dumps about whales here, but it doesn't take that long, it feels like. Or it's more interesting. Or she's making poopy, spermy sperm jokes the whole time. Me saying spermy sperm did give me the ick. I'm sorry. Okay, maybe that was a little too pee-pee poo-poo. It's not, she never says the word pee-pee poo-poo. I don't like saying the words pee-pee poo-poo. I've never said these words out loud, ever. I've only read them, and I don't even write them. Let's not do this again. No more spermy sperm. But, like, this character's funny. So, like, even when she's info dumping, she'll, like, warn you that she's info dumping. She's like, you can skip if you want to get back to the fucking and fighting. She's very self-aware. She breaks the fourth wall constantly. Some people don't like that. I do. It's funny. It's a stylistic choice. Alexis Hall commits to the bit. It's like that the whole book. This character knows she's writing a book and knows she's writing it, like, for a specific audience. And she even knows that, like, her book is going to be censored by, like, the corporations that sort of run everything in the future. Again, there's lots of religious commentary with, like, the pharma state owns a lot, and then also the religions are still Christianity, but different sects that have been taken over by, like, money. Like, you have to pay to get the preacher to pray for you. And sort of different planets have, like, different sort of values, but they're all, like, still sort of Christian. So it's all sort of religious commentary as well, like, capitalist commentary. And she's aware that her book will be censored, and, like, she'll censor herself sometimes. Very tongue-in-cheek, like, we don't know why the whale evolved to, I'm sorry, was put on this earth by the father to, not Earth, Jupiter, whatever. You get what I mean. It's funny. So even the info dumps are, like, very self-aware, and she never wants to go on too long, or if she has to, she's like, I'll explain this part later when it's relevant. Don't worry about it right now. So I think this is less info dumpy than Moby Dick, but it still has some of the info dump if you like that about Moby Dick. And from what I've seen from some of the reviewers who did read Moby Dick, this, like, sticks to it, like, hard. Like, it's a shot for shot of Moby Dick. Maybe not shot for shot, because Moby Dick is 700 pages. But it really is, like, beat for beat, scene for scene, like, character for character in a lot of cases, from what I've read. I have not read Moby Dick, but it seems to, like, really stay true to the source material and, like, really follow it, which is fun. And I think this book is, like, so unique. And the fact that it follows so closely to a very classic book that we all know, even if we've never read it. We sort of know the vague plot of Moby Dick. To do that and still be completely unique and something you've never read before and will never read again. I love a book that no one else could have possibly come up with. What do you mean, lesbian Moby Dick in space with space whales? Awesome. Who's writing that? No one's coming up with that. No one's thought of that before. So I was very impressed to learn that this is, like, really true to the original text and also manages to be batshit original. Why'd you do that? It's awesome. I love it. I love your brain. There's also, like, parts of this that I think might be, like, direct quotes from Moby Dick. Maybe not. The language in this is very varied in very fun ways. Again, I talked about the sort of humor is very juvenile and also 21st century. Like, there's literally very 21st century references in here. There's, like, edging, like, turns of phrase that we use. I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head. I read this, like, a week ago, which is a long time ago for me, but I was busy. I was doing other things. I didn't know how to structure this video. I still don't. I didn't know what to say. So we're a week out of me reading this book. I can't give you direct quotes, but it's very modern day, but it's also somewhat old-timey in its language, sort of archaic and Melville-esque sometimes, like Captain Ahab, who's not Ahab, it's the letter A, Captain A. I'll get into that in a minute. But Captain A sort of speaks in, like, an old-timey sailor language that feels Melville-esque. I don't know if they're direct quotes. Sometimes I feel like direct biblical quotes. Our main character, again, is sort of very colloquial, 21st century. There's a character who speaks Latin, Queequeg, who is just Q in this. Q speaks Latin. Latin, yeah, like ancient Latin. I do have a classics degree, thank God. I did understand most of this, for the most part. That's why you study the classics, kid, so that you can read the lesbian space opera Moby Dick. That did enhance my experience, and it doesn't translate most of the time. Sometimes it gets translated, She speaks a little bit of English, but a lot of times it's just straight up fucking Latin. I would recommend perhaps reading this on ebook, because then you can just highlight the text and translate it. I know some people read this as like a physical text and they were fucking annoyed that they had to go translate everything. You don't have to translate it. You can kind of get it through context clues. There's not a lot here that's like crucial. Like you need to know it. Like you're truly missing something if you're not understanding what Q is saying. But also if you do understand what Q is saying, you're getting like those little details. Again, this is like a Tumblr. This is a Tumblr book. If you have a Gideon the Ninth blog on Tumblr, I feel like you'd like this book and you'd like analyzing it and picking at all the little things and like translating Q's little lines of, deep prophecy. I think in Moby Dick, Queequeg is like the native character, like the sort of wise native archetype, and that is sort of what Q is here. She's from Earth. She's a Terran, so she lives in this sort of like wasteland Earth that's like fucked, has very little technology. All of its resources have been depleted and most people have left, and most people on Earth like don't really have the opportunity to leave Earth, and she's only leaving Earth to like scavenge parts and then bring them back to Earth. But I loved that she spoke Latin, because I know a little bit of Latin, and I'm like, oh, I can translate that. And then sometimes she would translate herself, and I'm like, yes, I got it right. I still got it, even though I don't use my Latin degree very often. But that's really fun. I read this on audiobook, so I was like hearing the Latin and translating it, which was more difficult than maybe seeing the text. I think even seeing the text, for me, would give me even more context to reading the Latin. And probably, if you know anything about like linguistics and like Latin languages, you'd be able to parse through the text or like get enough context out of it. But in the audiobook, this audiobook narrator was also awesome, so I do recommend the audiobook as well. The narrator, I believe her name is Charlie Ann Dolores. She did amazing accents. I genuinely thought this was an ensemble cast for a little while. Like every single character on the ship has a different accent and like a very distinct voice. There's a Scottish guy. There's a very sort of Southern American kind of guy. It's a really distinct variety of character voices that the audiobook does. So the audiobook's really great. Also, like, the naming conventions. Again, so much to analyze here. So all of the names, aside from our like main characters who are A, I, Q, we'll get to that. All of our side characters have very meaningful names. Like there's Locke, True Love, Flint. A lot of these names are like writers. I forget all the names. Their names are like Melville. There's no one named Melville, I don't think. That's a little on the nose. But they're like that. They're clearly intentional references to either like classic writers or philosophers. Like people that you should know. I don't really know. I don't read a lot of classics. So I recognize the name as being like, oh, like Locke. Okay, sure. I don't really understand the full symbolism of what all of those names means, but they absolutely do mean something. And I would read a Tumblr post about the breakdown of what those characters mean in reference to their human celebrity counterparts. But I feel like they also had meaning in just like a standard way. So Locke, I'm thinking John Locke. There might be others. Is John Locke a person, or is that a fucking Super Who Locke thing? I don't know, we're cooked. Am I confusing Sherlock pairings with philosophers? I didn't watch Sherlock. Okay, I just know Super Who Locke. I was there. I was not there, but like I was on the peripheral. I was looking. I knew they existed over there, not me. But whatever, Locke is clearly some writer or something, but also just the word lock invokes like a sort of cage, like a locked up person, and they're like the tight ass on the ship. They're the uptight, follow the rule book, no nonsense first mate on the ship. So the name Locke really fits them. And then there's Flint, who's a guy who just wants to immediately resort to violence and like, start shooting things. Flint. The names really mean something. And like on multiple levels. And then you also have the question of, were these people's actual names, or is our narrator disguising their names, or like giving them fake names that mean something in the context of this world? Obviously, Alexis Hall is giving them these names in the context of the reader's world, because we know who these authors, these famous people are. But also, like, is our main character, I, giving them these names because they have reference to things in this space universe? Like, you could genuinely make an argument for that. You could break that down. There's so much to analyze here. So many little details that are just, like, so well thought out, and in such a fun book. I loved this. I don't understand why people don't love this. Because our main character, does talk a lot about names. She refuses to name A and Q because it's too personal. Like, she had the closest relationship with those two women. She was fucking both of them. And so not naming them is sort of an act of defiance, of being able to keep their memories close to her selfishly. But it's also arguably more realistic, or like even more vulnerable, because like I believe that her name started with A. I believe that her name started with Q. And so I may not necessarily believe that Locke's name was actually Locke. So maybe that's a totally fake name. And A is like a real name. It's not the full real name, but it's more real than Locke is. So it's both selfish for the character, but also really vulnerable for the reader. In universe, there's so much to examine here. But that also, like, Locke might be their real name. Because there are other characters that are main characters, like, I forgot that guy's name. There's the old Ionian, the tall Ganymedian, where she just doesn't remember their name. She doesn't know them that well. Or you could argue maybe she did know them. Maybe she does remember their names and she just doesn't give a fuck about them. Doesn't really want to name them. Didn't want to bother. Didn't want to associate herself as being super close to those people if she wasn't. And so naming some people as it evokes a sense of her closeness to them. I don't know. You could break it down. You could make a million arguments here. Like Moby Dick, there's a lot to analyze. I feel like people really still get into Moby Dick. Apparently there's a lot of symbolism and like theories. I don't know, I was reading some shit about how Q isn't a real person and Q is half of I, and it's a fucking dual personality. I's talking to herself and she's talking to Q. Not in this book, I don't think. Q is a real person, but I think in Moby Dick, Queequeg and Ishmael, I don't know. I haven't read Moby Dick. Also, apparently they're a little bit gay. Or they're the same person. You could read it a lot of ways. And I feel like you could do that with this book too. So much to analyze. Like, so fun. So good for rereading. Delicious. Intellectual. Pee-pee poo-poo. Sperm. They're fucking. And like that, the narrator's insistence on these sex jokes, on deflecting, is like clearly a strong character choice. Because like this character doesn't want you, the reader, to feel that close to them. Or like they don't like to feel overly vulnerable. Even though they're writing this memoir, like they're sort of pushing you away. They don't want to invite you into their every little insecurity and fear and detail. This isn't a super heady book. She's sort of telling you what happens. You know you're not getting a 100% accurate account of what has happened. You know she's pushing you away with all of these sex jokes. I find her a really strong, really compelling character who has plenty of flaws, but is also super charming and just like has a voice and is like really guiding this book and this narrative in so many ways. I really, really like this main character. And again, I saw people complaining that they couldn't get into the character and like, or like any of these characters because of the naming conventions of her name being just the letter I, or the letter A, or the letter Q, which I think is like, it's low-key, that's a little dumb take. Like, that's kind of a dumb take. Like, what do you mean you can't get into the character because she won't tell you her name? Does it matter if her name was Ishmael, Isabel? Would that have made this book so different if she had said, hi, my name is Isabel? No, it wouldn't change jack shit. In fact, the withholding of her true name says so much more about this character. It makes her so much more interesting. The book even opens on her saying about her name, like, you can call me I, you can call me whatever you want. I've used a lot of names in a trans way, but also in like a sketchy work way, you know. She's sort of dodging the debt collectors, going from job to job. Presumably she's used a lot of false names, but also she's trans and figuring out her identity. And even the name she was using on the boat that people are calling her is maybe not the name she's using now as the person writing the book. And she talks about feeling uncomfortable when people called her that full name. And there's a beautiful, like, it's like the opening line, or like the first chapter. I think there's like a little bit of a prelude, and then a first chapter. And she literally opens like, call me I. I've used a lot of names, but I is the only pronoun that has ever always been mine. It's the only title that I've ever felt connected to consistently. And I think that's so much more fascinating than her just being, hi, my name's Ishmael, I'm writing this book. It says so much about like gender and self-perception and like what the fuck is a name? Is a name important? No, not really. You are you. I am I. You can say whatever name you want and it doesn't change who you are as a person. Like, I am I. Like, that's big brain shit, like right off the top. That's so interesting. So I don't understand the people who are like, I couldn't get into it because she said her name was I, even though you know her name, or like the character's name is Ishmael or Ahab. It's probably not, because I don't know who would name their daughter Ahab, but I don't know, man. It doesn't matter what their names are. It says so much more about the narrator that these names are being withheld. It's so fascinating. Such a character study. Incredible character work. Strong voice. Great writing. I loved that. That made me connect more to the character. Or like, it made me want to know more about her because she intentionally withholds so much. And I'm like, who are you? What is this person? Like, I loved it. I loved it. And it says a lot about her relationships with the Captain A and Q, which I already said. She does sort of love them, but she's also not a person who loves. And they're not in committed relationships. Captain Ahab is just obsessed with Moby Dick, who's not Moby Dick. It's called the Mobius Beast, or the Mobius Beast. There's an umlaut on the O. Hast seen the Mobius Beast. Mobius. It's pronounced Mobius. Even in the audiobook it says Mobius, but the umlaut. Mobius. So Captain Ahab, willing to fuck around on the ship, was presumably fucking Locke at some point on a different voyage. Now uses our main character as a bit of stress relief. There's a lot of like, not BDSM, but like flogging, hitting. Also, the captain has a thinking machine on board, which is like, it's like fucking Alexa. It's like AI. It's this sort of like outlawed or like sort of taboo thinking machine. It's fucking ChatGPT, and she's constantly talking to ChatGPT and asking it how to find the beast. And she's giving it like full control of the ship. Like it takes over like all of the data storage on the spaceship, and she's like, I don't fucking care. I don't care that it's corrupting your porn stash files. I need all of the information, the data, all the storage space I can get to run my thinking machine. I need my ChatGPT to tell me how to find the beast. And it literally is ChatGPT. It always agrees with her. Its primary goal is making her feel seen and listened to, which is really funny and ridiculous. But as I was saying, our main character is sort of in love with her, but like in an awe-inspiring way. The captain has such a presence, and like everyone on the ship could feel it. But our main character's really taken in by that and just really drawn to that, to this crazy destructive woman. But she's also sleeping with Q. She's also sleeping with some of the other people on the ship. Kind of everyone on the ship is just casually fucking each other. That's fun. Again, it's not like long, drawn-out, detailed sex scenes. This isn't like an erotica novel. But you know, just every once in a while, she mentions how they were all fucking. And then she references people she sleeps with or has relations with after this event. So you know right off the bat, like, that she is the sole survivor of this tragedy of hunting this beast. And so sometimes we do get time jumps that are stories she's telling people after the fact about this voyage, which is the only part that could be like slightly chronologically confusing for some people. It didn't bother me at all. Some people were calling this like confusing because there were too many time jumps. There's like no time jumps. I have to assume that they're talking about like when she breaks the fourth wall and is talking to you like really from the present day instead of just like telling you things that were happening in scene. I don't know what those people are out about. I don't understand the people who didn't like this book. I thought it was great. I don't know, maybe if you're a Moby Dick purist, why'd you read it? Why'd you read the horny lesbian Moby Dick if you just wanted Moby Dick? Just go read Moby Dick. But also I can't imagine wanting to read Moby Dick more than this in the 21st century. Again, I've read excerpts of Moby Dick. They aren't bad, like, language-wise. There's something to the prose I can appreciate. And then I know it's like a historical foundational text and everything copies it, and we get a lot of themes and ideas and character concepts and archetypes, like, from books like that. But like it's so stuffy. It's so stuffy, and like you have to know a lot of historical context to like appreciate like the sort of whaling industry of it all. Like it's fucking boring. Like like would you not rather read about horny lesbians hunting space whales? I would. If you're watching this video, you probably would. I don't know what those people thought they were getting into, because this is very clearly marketed in as like weird sci-fi. Gideon the Ninth, Moby Dick. I don't know. It's exactly what it is. It's marketed it perfectly. It was exactly what I was expecting, but executed even better than I was expecting. So like, I don't know what these people were mad about. And there were a lot of people who got arcs of this, who like DNF'd it, or gave it low ratings. I requested an arc of this, and didn't get it, which is totally reasonable, because I have no followers. But it did make me a little salty to see so many like 1-star NetGalley reviews. You could have gotten a 5-star NetGalley review from me. Why are you giving arcs to people who had no idea what they were getting into, when you could have given an arc to weird dykes like me, who knew exactly what they were getting into and would have loved it? So I'm a little jealous, but also completely reasonable. But also, why were these people reading it if... I don't know. I don't know why people didn't like this. I guess I could get not vibing with the humor. A lot of people did mention that she says sperm way too many times. And like, she calls it out. So obviously, very funny that it's called spermaceti and that they genuinely shorten it to sperm. Like, technically. Like, on a job level, they refer to it as sperm. It's the sperm industry. Hilarious, obviously. And our main character knows that and is like, don't worry, I know it's funny, but you'll get used to it once you hear it a few times. And I did get used to it once I heard it a few times, but still every time she brought it up, she'd be like, are you still laughing about it? And I'd be like, you know what, yeah, it is funny. Now that you said that, it is funny again. And she does do that the whole book. And so like that sort of fourth wall breaking, maybe repetitive, maybe some people are tired of the sperm jokes after like 480 pages. This was pretty long, honestly, but it honestly didn't feel that long. I think this was the longest book I've read so far this year, but it didn't feel that long at all. I was having a blast. But maybe some people don't like the blast of sperm for 480 pages. I did. I loved it. It's my type of humor, but also it says something about the character that she's so deflecting like that she has that sense of humor, that sex is always like the top of her mind. Like, of course she's gonna make the sperm joke. There's lots of like low-hanging fruit sex jokes in this, but like it fits the character. And maybe it's an author thing. I don't know if it's an author thing. I mean, probably the author found it funny, or they wouldn't really write it. But I think it's really a character choice. I've heard good things about this author. This is their sci-fi debut. Apparently they're like really prolific at writing romance novels, which is kind of crazy. I don't know. Coming from this, I wouldn't expect this person to write romance novels. Unless they're like weird. Like, I don't know. Not quite Chuck Tingle weird, but like different. But I don't know if they are, or if they're just like straightforward romances. But I've heard good things about them and those books. And I think I did see a couple of reviews that were like, I've liked other Alexis Hall books, but this one was very different. Not my thing. Which maybe I could understand. Maybe a lot of these people were Alexis Hall fans who didn't vibe with like sci-fi. Maybe they're just traditional romance readers and this seemed too epic. Maybe they got out early, because a lot of people did DNF this. I don't know. I don't want to say that it like changes at all, because it doesn't. Unless you're DNFing for like, because it's too sci-fi. Again, I think there's like some hard sci-fi world building right up front, and then it doesn't really matter that much. So like I would say don't DNF this if it's too sci-fi. Right away. Give it a little while before you do that for that reason. But I would say the tone is pretty consistent throughout. And so I guess if you're not vibing with it, you wouldn't like it the whole way through. But like, I don't know, I just loved it. And I don't know why people don't like it. Why didn't you like the book? Are you here because you hated the book and you wanted to see someone rag on it? If you did, you probably stopped watching a while ago. But if you didn't like this book, tell me what didn't work for you. Was it just the humor? Was it not the genre you were expecting? Was it unfaithful to Moby Dick or too faithful to Moby Dick? I saw some people say that they didn't like Moby Dick, and then they didn't like this either, because it was too Moby Dick. I don't know, but I would imagine the opposite. I'd imagine if you like really loved stuffy old men on a boat, you'd be like, these kids, these horny lesbian kids, they're not children. I shouldn't say it like that. But you know what I mean. Like, I don't know. It feels like old men who love Moby Dick wouldn't like this. I could understand that. But someone my age who has no interest in Moby Dick would love this. Like I did. Because I don't care about Moby Dick, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not gonna read that. Even though I've heard some good things, whatever. I've also heard people say it drags a lot, and it's not the funnest reading experience. What else? I have the notebook, but I wrote down a couple ideas that I wanted to talk about. I didn't really write a lot of notes. I kind of gave up. Oh yeah, I gave up real quick. There's nothing there. That's not helpful in the slightest. I wrote down like 3 things. I've already talked about them. Is there anything else to say? Probably. There's a lot. There's a lot in this book. There's a lot of little details that I thought were worth analyzing. There's a lot of big themes that I think are worth analyzing. It says a lot about capitalism, about religion, about dystopia. It's very much a dystopia. It's sort of satirical. About pharma states and big corporations and like medical technology, about Earth and our future and colonization. And then it's got all the themes of Moby Dick, or like some of them. The relentless pursuit of something, revenge. Captain A lost her leg to the beast, which I don't really think is like the reason she went crazy and needed to track down the beast. It's not really a quest for vengeance of her leg. I don't really know Captain Ahab's motivations either, other than, I don't know, that's just his defining trait, and that's what it is in this book, is Captain A, her defining trait is she's gonna find that fucking whale. And maybe everyone dies doing that, and maybe she uses all the ship's resources getting there and doesn't really care about the fate of the crew, and is just there for the fucking whale. I'm sure there's something there about single-minded, tunnel vision, desperation, determination, why, thinking about things other than that. Maybe you should do that. Maybe you should consider the lives of the humans on board. Stop looking to the past, look to the present. I don't really know what Moby Dick's got going on. Again, you could read this a lot of ways. You could read any book any way you want to be honest. You might not be right. That might not be what the author was going for. But if you get that out of it, then you get that out of it. You know what I mean? There's things here about, like, religious uprisings. There's a cult on the ship that keeps growing. That's probably a Moby Dick. And then there's, like, pirates. That's probably a Moby Dick, too. And then our main character's fascination with this woman who is fascinated with her own demise. And sort of this sort of godlike, God-given, otherworldly quest. I don't know, predetermined. I don't know what I'm saying. She feels very compelled to get that whale. I don't know. She's not doing it for the sperm. She just wants to kill the whale. Say that she killed the great Leviathan. I don't know. Again, Moby Dick. Something. If I wanted to know the answer to that, I'd just go, I don't know, look at some old Reddit threads from old men who read Moby Dick. There's probably a bunch of those. And then you can examine individual characters. Queequeg's got a lot going on. Q. I don't know why I'm saying Queequeg. Like, I've fucking read Moby Dick. Q's got a lot going on with Earth. And, like, Earth is sort of like communism now. These sort of simple communal tribes of people on Earth, which is interesting. They're sort of like the utopia, even though they're seen as backwards and no one goes there and they have no technology.
Why are you crying? A great brown whale. She does not like this.
But maybe that's it. Maybe that's all I have to say for now. There's definitely more to say. Again, I'd love to reread this. I think I will get a physical copy. The cover is beautiful. I love the colors on the cover. This really caught my eye. Again, I was the target audience for this. I love this shit. I will be getting a physical copy. I will read it again. I enjoyed this, and I want other people to enjoy this. I want to read smart Tumblr posts about this. I want people smarter than me to analyze this and talk about the character names and the conventions of the theme and, like, the trans experience that is portrayed in this, and, like, how I views herself and her body, and, like, this sort of trans dystopia futurism kind of thing. I want to see more points of view on that. I want to see other people talking about this. I want to see other people enjoying this. This brought me such a joy. This was one of my best books of the year for sure. It's only March, but I can't imagine many books topping this or even reaching this level. This might be my top book of the year. I am reading an arc of the Felicity Complex, so that's pretty good. That was the book I was expecting to be my top book of the year. So I'm totally biased, but this one is up there. It's right up there next to it. I had fun with this. I want other people to have fun with this. I want this book to get into the hands of weird dykes who like it. I think if you're gay and weird, you'll just enjoy this book. It's queer. It's trans. It's lesbians. Actually, I don't know if anyone in this is like specifically labeled as a lesbian. I don't really think any of these people use a lot of labels. Our main character has a complex sense of sexuality as well as gender identity. There's a line about how someone's looking at her and like reading her and is like, I think you prefer women, but you'll take a dick if that's all there is. Which again harkens back to the sort of like sexual aspect of her character and how she will use sex to deflect from anything, even if it's a person she's not completely and utterly naturally attracted to. Like, she craves sex on an unhealthy level that leads her into situations that she maybe otherwise wouldn't be in. But like it's complex, it's complicated, it's very queer. The body stuff is queer, the trans stuff is queer. There are other people who have changes, whether that's in a queer trans sense or in just like a disabled sense. Like, you know, people lose their body parts. There's a guy who was in prison, and so he had some of his body redone from injury, but it's like the cheapest shit ever because it was like the prison paying for it, and it's like just enough to keep him functional. So there's like disability discourse about that, with like combined with capitalism stuff about who gets access to what, and then like the debt thing. It's big brain queer future world building. It's awesome. I think if you're gay, you'll like this. Any flavor of gay. Maybe not gay guys. There's not like a lot of gay guys in this. But like, whatever. It's a bunch of queer people fucking each other. No one really cares about gender, sexuality going on here. They're just kind of trapped on a ship for 3 years. Sometimes they see other ships, and then they meet up, and then they have sex with other people on other ships. That's fun for them. They talk about that a lot, because that's about the most interesting thing that happens to them on a ship in the gas clouds of Jupiter. And then Locke is a non-binary character. Lots here. Lots of queerness. Lots of fun. Really well written. Really deep. Really funny. But also really intellectual. The dichotomy of man. I think this had so much going for it. I feel like I know a lot of people who would like this if they read it. Like, would love this. Not even just like it and enjoy it. Would, like, be obsessed with this. Like, this sticks in my brain. I read a lot of books. Some of them bounce right out. One ear out the other. But this will actually stick around with me. I want to reread it already. I just read it. I thought this was so fun. And so worth a shot. Maybe if you're hesitant, I don't know. Maybe if you're hesitant, maybe don't read it. Because no one else fucking liked it except me. But I loved it. And I hope it finds its audience. Maybe it's a nicher audience than I'm expecting. Maybe you do have to be a weird little gay freak to enjoy this book to its fullest extent. But, like, there's a lot of weird little gay freaks out there. If you're a weird little gay freak who was obsessed with something like Gideon, I feel like you would love this. And you'd get into this, like, almost as hardcore. Not quite as hardcore. Gideon has so much lore, and there's, like, forthcoming books and, like, theories and, like, things to, you know, ponder on and hope for. And there's that element of fandom that this doesn't have as a standalone book. But I just feel like you'd enjoy it. I feel like you should read this. If you liked The Locked Tomb, you should read this. This was maybe one of, if not the only book compared to Gideon the Ninth that actually deserves to be compared to Gideon the Ninth. Like, I thought it actually captured some of the tone of Gideon, some of the intellectualism of Gideon, some of the space opera stuff of Gideon. I thought this was very Gideon-coded. And I don't think there's a lot of books like that, because I think Gideon is in a class of its own. The Locked Tomb is a class of its own, especially in queer literature, especially in queer little gay freak literature circles, which is this circle. And so anything that gets close to that is like a fucking win in my book. So I think you should read this. If you trust anything I've said ever in any of my videos, if you like Gideon the Ninth, if you just like gay little queer stories, trans stories, is fun, is funny. If you like sperm, there's so much sperm. I don't know. I think this appeals to many people. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overestimating the number of people like me in the world. But I don't think you have to be just like me to read this, and I love it. Maybe you do. I don't know. What did you think? This is just a long discussion. Discuss in the comments if you so wish. If you made it this far in. You probably didn't. That's so fair. This is a long-ass video. No structure whatsoever. No scripting. Off the top of my head. I'm sure I forgot things that I'll be mad about later when I'm editing this. But if you did make it this far, tell me what you liked about this book, or didn't like about it. Or like what sounds cool, or if you want to read it. Because I was sold on this immediately, just from description alone. And they lived up to that description. So I can't imagine why people are reading this description and going, yeah, I'll read that, and they're not liking it. I don't get it. I don't get it, man. I don't know. Mysteries of the world. Not every reader is a genius like me. Maybe I'm just a Gemini, and I'm the only person who can appreciate intellectual commentary and pee-pee poo-poo sperm. I liked the pee-pee poo-poo sperm. Sue a guy. Oh, whatever. Read the book, please. Maybe. Have a good night. I think you'll like it. If you don't like it, you can just DNF like everyone else. Losers. Loser. You're a loser. Good night.